by scratching the surface, you get a terrible shock. It's such a, well, it's a heinous crime. People are so shocked by what.
For nearly 3 decades, Charles Spencer carried a secret that could have changed the way Prince William understood his mother's final fears. It was not merely a warning about palace politics. It was a deeply personal message about Camilla, the crown, and the future Diana believed her eldest son would one day be forced to defend. Now, with one sealed document placed before him, Diana's brother has finally decided that silence is no longer protection. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles Spencer summoned William to Althorp House without aides or palace officials. The Earl, Diana's brother, waited with an envelope between them. Across the front, in handwriting William recognized instantly, were the words, "For William, when the time is right." The prince stopped at the table. He did not sit. Spencer felt every silent year pressing against him. In a documented private account, he recorded that she had entrusted him with the letter during her final year. She ordered him to hide it until her eldest son possessed the strength and authority to understand her fear. Althorp, the Spencer family's ancestral home, kept Diana's memory beyond palace control. William stared at the envelope but refused to touch it. His jaw tightened as he demanded to know why his mother's message had been withheld for nearly 30 years. Spencer answered quietly and honestly. He feared that giving such a warning to a grieving boy would force a child to carry an adult war. Then the seal broke. Spencer opened the letter and read Diana's warning aloud. She believed Camilla's ambitions would eventually reach beyond marriage to Charles. The Queen Consort, a title for the reigning king's wife, not a monarch ruling in her own right, would seek influence over royal traditions, family loyalties, and the public memory of William's mother. William finally took the pages. Anger burned beneath his silence, but dread followed. Recent changes inside the monarchy suddenly felt less accidental. Spencer revealed 3 predictions, one about Diana's ceremonial legacy, one about William's future authority, and one about Camilla shaping the next reign before it began. The prince read the first paragraph twice. One sentence stopped him cold. Loyalty to his father must never become surrender of his own judgment. Spencer leaned forward and delivered the final blow. This was not Diana's first warning. It was the last record of a fear born during a tense royal gathering years earlier. To understand why Diana placed such a devastating responsibility in her brother's hands, William would first have to confront the painful loyalties binding every person named in her warning. The letter did not place William between 2 competing versions of palace history. It placed him between the people who had defined his entire life. Diana was the mother whose absence shaped him. Charles was the father whose reign he had sworn to support. Camilla was no longer an outsider waiting at the gates. She stood beside the king, and Charles Spencer had just forced the future monarch to reconsider where devotion ended and duty began. William remained beside the table, holding the pages as though they had become heavier with every sentence. As Prince of Wales, the title traditionally given to the heir to the British throne, he was expected to protect stability around Charles. Yet as Diana's son, he carried another duty, one no ceremony had ever formally assigned to him, preserving the dignity of the woman whose memory had shaped both his childhood and his future. Spencer watched the conflict move across his nephew's face. He had guarded Diana's private truth, because he believed silence once protected William. Now he feared that breaking it could damage the prince's relationship with the king beyond repair. The Earl had fulfilled one promise, but the cost of doing so was only beginning to reveal itself. William finally asked the question Spencer had expected. "Do you despise Camilla?" The answer came without hesitation. Spencer said personal resentment was no longer the point. What mattered was whether Diana's fears had begun appearing in real decisions, changes to ceremonies, family roles, and the way the monarchy spoke about its past. Camilla's place beside Charles was settled. Her influence over Diana's legacy was not. William closed the letter. For a moment, he was no longer the future king. He was the boy who had once stood between 2 wounded parents, loving them both while understanding neither of them. He told Spencer that he would not allow the monarchy to turn his mother into a weapon against his father. Charles had caused pain, but he was still his father. Diana had suffered, but she had never asked her son to live inside her anger. Spencer nodded. He explained that the warning demanded boundaries, not revenge. Diana wanted certain traditions protected, certain titles prevented from erasing history, and certain influence kept away from William's children. Most of all, she feared Camilla might one day gain authority over commemorations connected to the late Princess of Wales, allowing the institution to reshape how Diana would be remembered. William moved toward a cabinet of childhood photographs. He removed one showing his mother kneeling beside him and studied it in silence. What exactly did she think would happen to us? Spencer's expression hardened. Diana's fear had begun during one royal ceremony, when Camilla made a request that stunned everyone who heard it. That request, nearly forgotten by the world, would become the point of no return. Diana could neither dismiss nor forgive. Long before Camilla stood beside a crowned king, Diana believed she had seen the first sign of what might come. It happened during a private planning meeting connected to a major royal commemoration. There were no raised voices, no public confrontation, and no dramatic announcement. Only one carefully phrased request. Yet when Diana learned what had been proposed, she understood that the struggle was no longer about affection. It was about position, legitimacy, and control over the monarchy's future story. Charles Spencer lowered his voice as he carried William back to the final years of his mother's life. The royal world had become a place where rivalry rarely appeared as open conflict. It hid inside invitations, seating arrangements, ceremonial duties, and carefully chosen words. Protocol, the formal rules governing royal conduct and public occasions, could make a private ambition appear harmless while giving it lasting authority. Diana had sensed that danger growing. She feared the institution would slowly make Camilla's presence feel inevitable, while reducing the princess's own place in the story surrounding William and Harry. The change would not happen through one cruel announcement. It would happen quietly, through small decisions repeated until memory itself seemed altered. Then came the request. During a private discussion about a future remembrance service connected to the Prince of Wales's charitable legacy, Camilla asked that any role she later held should include approval over family representation, ceremonial wording, and the placement of tributes linked to Diana. A remembrance service is a formal gathering held to honor a person or legacy, but this proposal reached far beyond ceremony. It offered influence over who would speak, what would be said, and how the past would be presented. Diana did not confront Charles or challenge Camilla publicly. Instead, she telephoned Spencer late that evening. Her voice carried an unnatural calm that frightened her brother more than fury ever could. She told him Camilla was no longer searching only for acceptance. In Diana's mind, she was preparing for a future in which she could influence how William's mother would be remembered inside royal life. Then the princess asked Spencer to find a pen. William must never allow another person to inherit control over his memory of me. Spencer wrote every word. When Diana stopped speaking, he placed the pen down. Silence held between them for several painful seconds, before she asked him to promise that her son would receive the truth. Days later, Diana turned that warning into the letter now resting in William's hands. She added fears about his future household, his children, and decisions being made in his name before he possessed real authority. William suddenly understood. One prediction might already be unfolding through a recent decision Camilla had tried to influence inside the palace. The past had given William a warning, but the present was about to force him into the confrontation Diana had feared he would one day face. William did not send an aide. He did not request a formal audience or allow palace secretaries to soften his purpose. Carrying Diana's letter beneath his arm, the prince entered the room where Camilla was waiting and closed the door behind him. She expected a discussion about ceremonial planning. Instead, the future king placed one handwritten page on the table and asked a question that shattered every layer of royal politeness between them. Did you ever intend to control how my mother would be remembered? Camilla did not answer at once. She had recommended changes to an upcoming memorial event, including a smaller role for charities long associated with Diana. A memorial event is a formal occasion created to honor someone who has died, and every decision about its wording, guests, and tributes carries symbolic weight. The queen consort believed the revisions would stop the monarchy from appearing trapped between its past and present. William saw something far darker. To him, they matched the warning his mother had written decades earlier. Camilla read the opening lines, then pushed the page away. She told William that Diana's fears belonged to a painful time when bitterness had clouded every relationship around Charles. The past, she argued, could not be allowed to govern the future forever. William refused to let her turn the confrontation into an argument about jealousy. He told her this was not about whom Charles had loved, or which woman had suffered more. It was about whether Diana's legacy was now being managed by the very person she feared would replace her. Camilla rose from her chair. William remained where he was, standing between her and the door. His voice never climbed, but the restraint made every word sharper. "Look at me," he said. "Tell me you have never tried to reduce my mother's place beside her son's." Camilla held his stare. Then the truth slipped through. She admitted supporting a proposal to remove a recurring tribute to Diana from a future state event. A state event is an official royal occasion, conducted on behalf of the crown, often carrying national significance. Camilla insisted the change was meant to free William's eventual reign from unresolved grief, not erase the late princess. William opened the letter again. That exact tribute was one of 3 traditions Diana had named in her warning. For the first time, Camilla had no immediate reply. The prince took the proposal, drew one hard line through the recommendation, and placed the pen before her. Camilla warned him that memory did not equal authority. The final decision still belonged to Charles, and the king had already been briefed. William had challenged Camilla's influence, but the decision would now move to the one man whose heart, crown, and family stood at the center of the conflict. King Charles had survived decades of public judgment, private grief, and constitutional pressure. Yet the file placed before him presented a choice no monarch could make without personal cost. On one side stood Camilla, the woman he had spent much of his life defending. On the other stood William, the son who would inherit everything Charles was trying to preserve. Between them lay Diana's handwriting, a voice from the past demanding an answer from the crown. Charles alone possessed the authority to approve or reject the proposed memorial changes. His decision would determine whether William's confrontation carried real weight or faded into an emotional protest without power. The Prince of Wales, the title held by the monarch's direct heir, could challenge the recommendation, but only the reigning sovereign could stop it. Senior advisors urged Charles to keep the dispute inside the family. They feared that a formal intervention would expose a dangerous division between the king, the queen consort, and the future monarch. Publicly, the crown depended on unity. Privately, that unity was already cracking. Charles opened Diana's letter in his study and read every line without interruption. When he reached the warning that William must never surrender his judgment in the name of loyalty, the king removed his glasses and placed them beside the file. He felt accused. He also understood why. Diana had believed the institution failed to protect her place in her son's emotional lives. Charles knew that pain could not be dismissed simply because time had passed. The monarchy had survived the scandal, but William had carried its consequences into adulthood. Camilla entered before he had reached a decision. She asked him directly whether he trusted her. Charles did not answer. The silence cut deeper than denial. Camilla realized the real question was not whether he believed in her devotion. It was whether he trusted the limits of her influence. Then another file arrived. Charles learned that the memorial proposal had been developed through Camilla's private office before William's household was formally consulted. A royal household is the team of advisors and staff supporting a senior member of the family. Several officials had simply assumed her preferences would become policy, granting the queen consort authority no written role had clearly given her. Charles picked up his pen. He signed an instruction freezing every change to ceremonies, patronages, and tributes connected to Diana, until William reviewed them personally. A patronage is an official royal association with a charity or public organization, carrying both symbolic support and influence. Camilla read the order once. Her face hardened. Charles had protected his son, but the message reached far beyond one memorial. For the first time, the king had limited her reach to preserve Diana's legacy. The signature ended the immediate battle, yet inside the palace, it triggered a far more dangerous reckoning over loyalty, humiliation, and the boundaries of royal power. The order did not remove a title, cancel an engagement, or provoke a public announcement. Its impact was quieter, and for Camilla, far more humiliating. Within hours, palace officials began returning files her office had expected to approve. Invitations were revised, Briefing papers were redirected. Decisions once presented to her as courtesy now moved directly to William. The queen consort remained beside the king in public, but behind closed doors, the limits of her authority had suddenly become impossible to ignore. Charles's instruction created a boundary no one inside the palace could misunderstand. Camilla could advise the king, support his duties, and stand beside him during official events. But she could no longer decide how Diana's memory, William's household, or the next generation of the royal family would be represented. William's office received control of the disputed memorial and the charitable tributes connected to it. A royal household is the staff and advisors serving a senior royal, and this transfer placed the future monarch at the center of every decision involving his mother. Camilla listened as her private secretary explained that 3 ceremonial recommendations had been withdrawn. She removed her reading glasses, folded the papers once, then again, and asked everyone to leave. The door closed. Silence followed. She felt the humiliation immediately. Charles had not merely supported William. In her mind, he had validated Diana's suspicion that Camilla's influence needed to be restrained. Her anger reached beyond the prince. It turned toward Charles Spencer, the man who had allowed a warning from the past to govern relationships among the living. Charles entered later and found her alone. He tried to explain that the decision was necessary to protect his son's independence, not to punish his wife. Camilla did not accept the distinction. Will protecting William always mean distrusting me? The king hesitated before admitting that clearer limits should have been established years earlier. His confession struck harder than the order itself. Camilla now understood that the restriction was not a temporary response to one emotional dispute. Charles believed the boundary had always been necessary. William, meanwhile, reached the final portion of Diana's letter. His mother had predicted that the true test would come when the king was forced to choose between protecting Camilla's feelings and defending his son's judgment. The prince read the sentence twice. Then he called his father. Charles answered, but William offered only 6 words. She knew this day would come. The king did not discuss the memorial or the frozen recommendations. He asked William to meet him alone, without Camilla, Spencer, advisors, or palace officials. For the first time, the conflict would no longer be carried through letters, advisors, or royal authority. It would be settled between a father and the son Diana had tried to prepare. There were no red boxes on the table, no equerries waiting outside, and no secretaries recording what was said. Charles and William met as father and son, stripped of the titles that had complicated every decision between them. The king had read Diana's warning. The prince had witnessed one of its predictions come true, yet neither man entered the room seeking victory. They came to decide whether the pain of the past would continue ruling their family or finally teach them how not to repeat it. Charles chose a private sitting room William had known since childhood. He hoped familiarity might make honesty easier, because nothing about this conversation was simple. Red boxes are the locked cases used to carry official government papers to the monarch, but none were present now. This meeting was not about state business. It was about a father, a son, and the woman whose absence still stood between them. William brought Diana's original letter and nothing else. He left behind the memorial papers, palace briefings, and every document tied to the dispute. The message was unmistakable. He had not come to argue over ceremony. He had come to understand whether his father could protect the past without feeling threatened by it. Charles spoke first. He admitted that he once believed time would soften every wound surrounding Diana. Instead, silence had allowed pain to harden into competing loyalties. The king had spent years trying to move forward, yet every step away from guilt had sometimes looked like a step away from her memory. William listened without interrupting. Then he told his father that he did not want Camilla humiliated. He did not want revenge, nor did he want the monarchy divided into those who defended Diana and those who defended the queen consort. He wanted one assurance: protecting Charles's marriage must never require reducing his mother. The king lowered his voice. He confessed that defending Diana's legacy had often felt like reopening failures he could barely face. Avoidance had been easier, but that avoidance had left William to carry the burden alone. William opened the letter and read the final passage aloud. Diana asked him to become a king capable of honoring the living without betraying the dead. The warning changed in that instant. It was no longer a call to resist Camilla. It was a demand for responsibility. Charles reached for a document beside him. It was a permanent royal directive, an official written instruction carrying the monarch's authority, giving William control over every tribute, archive, and charitable legacy connected to Diana. The king slid it across the table. William read it, then returned the pen. "Sign it because it is right," he said. "Not because you feel guilty," Charles signed. Yet their private reconciliation would not remain private for long. What began as a sealed family secret was now about to become a national symbol, forcing the public to decide whether Diana's warning had protected William or reopened the monarchy's deepest wound. By sunrise, Diana's private warning was no longer confined to Althorp, Windsor, or the king's study. It dominated broadcasts, newspaper covers, and conversations across Britain. Some saw the revelation as proof that the late princess had understood the palace better than anyone around her. Others feared her memory was once again being used to divide the royal family. But one image captured the national mood more powerfully than any argument. William standing before his mother's memorial, carrying the letter she had left behind. The palace confirmed that Charles had issued a permanent directive giving William final responsibility for every official tribute and charitable legacy connected to Diana. A royal directive is a formal instruction issued with the monarch's authority, meaning the decision could not be dismissed as a temporary family compromise. The king had drawn a clear line. His son would decide how his mother's public memory was protected. Charles Spencer then broke his silence through a recorded interview released from Althorp. He did not repeat the letter's most private passages, but he confirmed that Diana had feared outside influence over how William and Harry would remember and represent her. The Earl spoke carefully, yet the pain beneath his words was unmistakable. He had kept his promise, but fulfilling it had reopened the family's deepest wound. Britain divided almost immediately. Supporters praised William for defending Diana without humiliating Charles. They saw restraint where others expected rebellion. Critics argued that private grief had become a battle over royal authority, pulling the monarchy backward when it needed to move forward. Then one newspaper captured the moment. A major London front page showed Diana beside a young William beneath the headline, "Her final warning, his first decision." Copies rose above a crowd gathered outside Kensington Palace, the royal residence once closely associated with the princess. Some people carried flowers. Others simply stood in silence, drawn together by a story that had never fully released its hold on the country. During an evening broadcast, one presenter called the directive the moment William stopped being merely Diana's grieving son and became the guardian of her place in royal history. Camilla responded through a carefully worded public statement. She accepted the king's decision and acknowledged William's unique responsibility for his mother's legacy. The queen consort offered no protest, but the restraint in her message revealed how much had changed. Charles later watched his son place a handwritten note beside Diana's memorial. The king understood the meaning immediately. William had chosen remembrance without rebellion, loyalty without surrender. Eventually, the crowds dispersed and the headlines faded. Yet William, Charles, Camilla, and Spencer were left with a permanent truth. Diana's warning had never been about defeating Camilla. It was about ensuring her son would never surrender the right to define his mother's legacy. In the end, Diana's secret warning did not bring down a queen consort, break a king, or turn William against his family. Its purpose was more profound. It forced the future monarch to decide what kind of man he would become when love, duty, memory, and power demanded different answers. Charles Spencer had guarded the letter because he feared its consequences. Yet when William finally read it, Diana's words did not command revenge. They demanded courage, and gave her son the strength to draw a boundary the monarchy could no longer ignore. Charles made that boundary permanent. His royal directive and official instruction carrying the monarch's authority gave William undisputed control over Diana's memorials, archives, charitable associations, and the future involvement of his children in commemorations connected to their grandmother. The decision mattered because it protected her public legacy from shifting palace loyalties and ensured that her eldest son, not another royal household, would define how she was remembered. Camilla accepted the limit. Her position beside the king remained secure, but it no longer gave her influence over every chapter that had come before her. During one final private conversation, the queen consort told William she had never intended to erase Diana. The prince listened, then answered with calm firmness. "Intention mattered," he said, But boundaries mattered more. They separated without warmth, yet without the bitterness that had once threatened to divide the family completely. Charles signed the final document and placed Diana's original letter inside the royal archive, the protected collection where important monarchy records are preserved. He transferred control of it to William. In that quiet act, the king acknowledged both his former wife's pain and his son's right to protect her memory. Spencer returned to Althorp carrying only the empty envelope. He opened the drawer where it had rested for decades, placed it inside, and closed it. The promise he had made to his sister was complete. For the first time, the Earl no longer carried her warning alone. William kept a copy of Diana's final passage. He did not preserve the words about Camilla. He chose the sentence asking him to honor the living without betraying the dead. Standing before his mother's portrait, he folded the page, placed it beside a photograph of his children, and closed the cabinet with calm finality. Diana's warning was never a prophecy of destruction. It was an act of maternal protection. Charles kept his wife. Camilla retained her place. Spencer fulfilled his promise. William defended his mother and proved that his future authority would be guided by judgment, not resentment. Diana could not stand beside William when he made that decision, but through the warning entrusted to her brother, she helped her son take one of his first defining steps toward becoming king. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.